Assalamu alaikum. Our lecture will be about the development of the midgut or the small intestine. The entire gastrointestinal tract develops from single long tube that extends from the cranial to the caudal end of the embryo. As you can see here in this picture, this is the gut tube. This is the cranial end, extends down to the caudal end of the embryo. The organs that are derived from the midgut include duodenum, ileum, cecum, appendix, ascending colon, hepatic flexure of the colon, and the transfer colon, only the proximal two-third. The midgut undergoes rapid phase of growth, result in the formation of a midgut U-shaped loop. It herniates outside of the abdominal cavity of the fetus and protrudes into the umbilical cord. This herniation is physiological. Here, the loop will have two parts, the upper part, which is the upper limb or the cranial part, and this is the lower limb or the caudal part. At the tip of this loop, the midgut is attached to the umbilicus by a thin duct, which is the vitelline intestinal duct. This appears later with further development. The mesentery appears as a fan shape. It joins the structure of or holds the structures of the loop of the intestine together. The blood supply of the midgut structures is through the superior mesenteric artery, which is a branch of the dorsal aorta. This is the superior mesenteric artery. The middle wider part of the primitive gut tube, it's in communication with the yolk sac. It elongates and forms the U-shaped loop, which represents the midgut. This loop is suspended from the dorsal abdominal wall by the elongated mesentery. The physiological herniation of the gut occurs as due to the rapid growth of the loop and also because of very little space available in the abdomen due to the presence of the massive liver and the pair of kidneys. The midgut loop herniates into the connecting stalk. It starts at about 6th week and keeps on growing in length within the umbilical cord. Then at the end of the 10th week, as the abdominal cavity increases in size, the developed loops of the midgut start to re-enter in the abdominal cavity, and at about 12th week, then later on, all the midgut re-enters and settles in the abdominal cavity. The rotation of the midgut within the umbilical cord occurs around an axis, which is represented by the superior mesenteric artery. As we mentioned, the loop has cranial limb of the upper part and the caudal limb or the lower part. The caudal limb soon develops a swelling at its end, which is the cecal bud, which is the primordium of the cecum and the variform appendix. It acts as a marker throughout the rotation. Immediately after entering the cord, the loop rotates 90 degrees counterclockwise on the axis of the artery. Therefore, the cranial limb becomes to lie on the right, whereas the caudal limb to the left. The original cranial limb shows rapid growth in its length as compared to the caudal limb. Now, then another 90 degrees counterclockwise direction happens, and as a result, the original cranial limb will become caudal, the original caudal limb will become cranial. As you can see in this picture, the U-loop here undergoes 3 rotations in a stepwise manner. This is the U-loop, this is the cranial limb, and this is the caudal limb. Here you can see the first rotation occurs by 90 degrees in the counterclockwise direction. Change the positioning of both limbs. Here you can see that this is the caudal limb, whereas this becomes the cranial limb. So the upper limb of the U-loop or the future ileum comes to lie on the right side, whereas at the end, whereas the Lower limb or future colon lies on the left at the end of rotation process. As you can see in this picture, the first rotation by 90 degrees in the anti-clockwise direction and along the axis, which is represented by the superior mesenteric artery. This pencil represents the axis of rotation. At the end of the first rotation, the upper limb will become of the U-shape in the future ilium becomes to lie in the fetus right side, whereas the lower limb will give the future colon lies on the left. Here is the upper limb and this is the lower limb. And this is the cecal bud. This is the counter-clockwise direction. The cranial limb, this is the cranial limb, becomes to the right, and this is the caudal limb. Another counterclockwise direction, the original cranial, this is the cranial one, which elongates at a rapid rate more than the caudal one. So here, again, the original, this is the cranial limb, becomes caudal, and the caudal limb becomes cranial. This is the site of the cecal part as a marker. This picture shows the rapid growing coils of the jejunum and ilium in the original cranial limb. This is the cranial limb. Here, the re-entry of the coils of the small intestine, the original cranial limb here, and it will be the first one to re-enter, and the last to enter is the cecum. This is the cecum and the appendix. The final positioning of the structures of a small intestine. The first structure, as we mentioned, that will enter the abdominal cavity are the coils of the jejunum. They will occupy the left upper corner of the cavity below the stomach. Then they will occupy the center of the abdominal cavity. The last structure to re-enter the abdominal cavity is the cecum with the appendix. They will be pushed down by the structures already present in the right quadrant and further pulled down by the growing coils of the ilium. They will settle down lastly at the iliac fossa. This is the iliac fossa. Thank you for your listening.